Some people like to deep clean every Saturday morning. I prefer to spend a few minutes every day keeping things fresh with Lysol. Lysol's disinfecting wipes conveniently tackle surfaces, including remotes, tablets, and smartphones, killing 99.9% of viruses and bacteria. Don't just clean, Lysol clean.
Meet the next generation of podcast stars with SiriusXM's Listen Next program, presented by State Farm. As part of their mission to help voices be heard, State Farm teamed up with SiriusXM to uplift diverse and emerging creators. Tune in to Stars and Stars with Issa, as host Issa Nakazawa dives into birth charts of her celeb guests. This is just the start of a new wave of podcasting. Visit statefarm.com to find out how we can help prepare for your future. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Today is the day you will lose fat. Come see Dr. T at NJ Diet.
Easiest diet I've ever done. It's changed my life. Come see Dr. T.
Using blood work and DNA testing. 1-855-5-NJ-DIET and NJDiet.com. Change your life in only 40 days with NJ Diet.
I think if you get joy in it, fuck it. I mean,
yeah.
I've probably lost Lord knows how much. You see, I'm playing on 3 freaking phones right now. Yeah, so I've lost Lord knows how much money on this, but it's one of the things that I have that kind of keeps me centered and calm. So,
are those 3 different accounts?
Did you used to play Pokemon at all, or do you play? Thank God you didn't. It's a terrible addiction. But basically, in order to play the game at a normal level, now you have to have more than one account to do certain things, unless you have a team.
Right.
So you probably know the original game was just picking, like, just go outside and...
Yeah.
But obviously that bored the normal person. Like, it came out in July. By October, they probably lost, 90% of their usage.
Shit, wow.
But then a bunch of weirdos kept going, and then they started adding a bunch of stuff that just kept pulling people back in. They, like, for the collectors, they added shiny, like, variant versions. So the equivalent of sneaker comes out and you need it in that other colorway. But the other colorway is only, like, 1 in every 2,000.
Wow.
So that started fucking with people to keep playing that. And then they added, like, raid battles. So the raid battle is this thing where you need other players to beat certain bosses. Like, it's just impossible to do by yourself. So the idea was to force interaction. Once you interact, they introduced trading. So now you can trade the Pokemon. So if you don't have a shiny, but you have, like, this crazy raid boss that someone else doesn't have, you're like, oh, I'll trade you that for that. So then we created that. And it just, every week, every whatever, they just add more and more shit. And
damn.
So yeah, I got suckered into it. I don't know. There's just aspects of the game that it just speaks to, like, collect.
Yeah.
I have, I don't know how many records, 50,000. Why do I have 50,000 records? Like,
yeah,
I'd say I probably haven't played 90% of them. They're just sitting in my thing because I don't know. It had some obscure cut that Dilla used to sample.
Right.
But I just got it for that one cut and that's it. Or some strange Filipino disco album that I saw just because the cover was crazy. I have, why? I don't know. But it makes me happy.
Yeah. No, that makes.
Yeah, same thing. But have we started the podcast?
No, this is we could if we want.
Yeah. Why don't we get into it?
My next guest can be described like this. Mixtape extraordinaire, Jay-Z's tour DJ in 2008, incredible DJ, loves food, loves travel. He's DJ Neil Armstrong, and I want to welcome him to the library with Tim Einenkel. Thank you, man, for joining me.
What's going on? Thank you for having me.
So I was like, start from the beginning, and what was your first taste of rap music, and what was your first taste of hip-hop culture, and then what drew you to this?
First taste would have been probably like any kid growing up in New York. So, 80s. The first song I remember really loving was Jam on It by Newcleus. For whatever reason, that song was played on the radio constantly. I don't know what it was about it, but you know, whatever, that when that bass line came in, I was like, oh, this is my joint. But I don't know. I must have been somewhere between 5 and 10. I grew up in Flushing, Queens, but not Chinatown, Flushing. Kind of on the border of Jamaica. Like, if you go one block over, it's Fresh Meadows. You go in the other direction, it's Jamaica Estates. You go, like, it was literally, I live on the corner because I ended up buying a house one block over and I'm in a different zip code. And I went to a very multicultural church, which is, I think, pretty odd. Like, most churches are all black, all Korean, all white, but mine was, I mean, there was a Pakistani family, a bunch of Filipinos, you know, white folks, black folks. I just kind of grew up, you know, like at the United Nations. And so all of that kind of really was instrumental in creating my outlook of what New York was and what life is, you know. So I hate to use it because it turns out, you know, I really didn't have those color racist issues because, you know, especially in the church, they're taught, this is your family, this is your flock. And so, okay, yeah, I guess everyone's my family. Anyway, you know, I remember there was a older kid. I don't know if he was a teenager, but he was definitely, you know, older. And he was into b-boying, like almost everybody was. And I used to just be like amazed. I was like, oh my God, this guy's like, he's like Bruce Lee except black. What is he doing? How is he spinning on his back like that? And that was probably how I got really enamored. And of course, Newcleus was, you know, one of them, you know, electro sounding b-boy anthem type deals, I guess. And yeah, that was the first hip hop song. And, you know, back then, really, really back then, there was that hip hop is a fad. Yeah. You know, really, really not. I guess it's not really considered that anymore. But I think that would be a ridiculous thing to say at this point. But back then, it was like, oh, this is a here today, gone tomorrow type thing. But it was really, really big for a moment. I mean, you had movies about it. You had Breakin', you had, you know, all of that stuff. And for whatever reason, these hip hop tapes would fall into my lap. So Run DMC, I remember having their album. I'm terrible with names. My memory is shot as I've gotten older. You know, the classic one with their faces at the bottom and the, you know, Run DMC across. Yeah.
My memory is shot too. So
I should know the name of it, but I don't. I'm terrible. But we would listen to it on the way to like basketball camp, at, you know, things like that. And that was my first taste. The next important thing that happened was, oddly enough, dealing with church again. My pastor's son, who I think, you know, pastors' kids often have a very bad reputation, you know, just a kind of a balanced thing, I guess. And my pastor's son gave me NWA, the NWA album, Eric B. and Rakim, Follow the Leader, and possibly maybe Cool G Rap or something else. I can't remember, to be honest. And, you know, I dubbed the cassettes from him, and that was my next taste. All right. But the one that really brought me in as far as a cultural thing was, I guess, 1988, 89, right when I was about to start high school, or maybe I was a freshman. You know, that was when, you know, It Takes a Nation of Millions came out, Slick Rick. You know, Slick Rick's album came out, and De La Soul's album came out during that time period. Yeah. It's almost like these, if you look at it, like it's like, you know, you got the militant, you know, conscious voice, You got the party anthem in Rick.
Yeah.
And you got, that crazy style with De La. And that was the point where you could say I became a hip hop head. And in particular was De La Soul's album, which is really interesting because it's the 30th anniversary. Right. So I guess 30 years ago is when I became like a real hip hop head. I used to go to these Christian retreats. I was like a youth not pastor, but like the leader of my youth group. And I'm part of the United Methodist Church. The church was actually, they had these conference things. So those conferences were geographic. And so you would have people coming from upstate New York, like Goshen. I don't even know if any of y'all know where Goshen is. But I always remember that there was this one kid who kept saying, I'm Bill from Goshen. So I still don't know where Goshen is, but obviously it's somewhere upstate. And then you had folks coming out from like all the way out from like Lake Ronkonkoma, but then anywhere in between. So people from Amityville would be there, people from whatever, And when we were on the bus, a lot of the people that were in our conference were from the black churches. And at the time, De La just dropped, their first album, and that's all we listened to in the bus. So that was really like the first time I heard that. At the same time, really interestingly enough, being an Asian American in New York. So I went to Bronx Science, and I don't know if it's some unsaid rule, but eventually if you're Asian, you probably listen to New Wave. And, my sister did. My sister, so I grew up with that, whatever your older sibling does,
yeah, of course, yeah.
You kind of follow. And I mean, I was a New Wave head, like through and through. I've seen New Order perform live, OMD, Depeche Mode probably like 6 times. I used to just follow my sister. She had to bring me to the concerts. My mother made her. So for whatever reason, there used to be a radio station called WLIR, which later on became WDRE and became WLIR again. But their whole thing was like, new music first and dare to be different. So they used to play De La Soul's I Know on the radio when, no one was playing their stuff on the radio.
Because this was the time, not to cut you off, but this was the time that I remember Z100, for example, would have, like, their big thing would be like, an absolutely, like the voiceover would be like, absolutely no rap or something like that. Like, that was the big thing at the time.
Yeah. MTV, which is really interesting. MTV, there was, it's really, people just don't know this or just can't realize it, but there was a point where they refused to play. They didn't say it this way. They would say, well, we gotta worry about, our demographic that lives in middle America.
Right.
But this is the craziest thing they actually said straight up. And this was an interview with David Bowie. They were like, we have to worry about our demographic that might be scared of, a lot of black artists on their TV screen, like just straight up. Yeah, we're racist. It's crazy. But anyway, for whatever reason, WLIR used to play I Know. And that two things kind of coupling together were like, wow, this side of me is playing this music and this other side, I'm hearing it, in this area. So I was like, all right, I'm going to get into it. So it was really like those 3 albums that turned me from a casual fan into like, okay, well, if I like Public Enemy, I'm going to have to look into these guys. And if I like De La, well, I got to look into Tribe and I got to look into Brand Nubian. And then, all my friends in school were wearing Jabots and they were, copying Grand Poobah's style. So next thing you know, I got to go find those. I got to go find a pair of Tims and I got to go do all that. And, it just kind of snowballed. And, they kind of say when you're in high school, whatever you're into, that will be what you're into for the rest of your life. So if you're into, Zeppelin and rock and, probably when you get older, you're going to like the same thing. For me, it was hip hop. And then let's fast forward maybe when I got into Cooper Union. By that time, it's already 90. Oh my God, when did I go to school? 92, 93, 94, 95. Right. So yeah, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96. Right. So late. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's Fat Beats kind of starts. I end up hanging out at Fat Beats all the time. I wasn't DJing quite yet, but somehow I ended up getting a hold of these, the DMC battles. I don't know why. I don't know what prompted me to go buy these VHS cassettes. And I was just like, wow, what the heck is going on here? This is freaking crazy. And I ended up, there used to be this thing called the New Music Seminar, which used to be like a very rock-oriented event, but eventually it kind of got morphed. It was still both, for sure. But, you know, the god DJ Clark Kent used to throw a DJ battle there and an MC battle. And I went there as a volunteer. Like, if you volunteered, you get in for free.
Oh, nice.
So that summer I volunteered. And, I mean, that was just, I forget what they call those life-changing moments, that there's like a nice little pretty word for that. But basically that set up the rest of my life from that point. I go and I end up meeting this kid, Kinetic Energy, and his clique, who he was at the time, he was part of the crew called the Arsonists.
Right.
I go there and I meet Qbert and Shortcut for the first time. Shortcut is actually battling. So Shortcut is a DJ from the Bay, part of a crew called the Invisible Scratch Pickles, also the Triple Threat DJs, also the Beat Junkies. One of the illest, most talented DJs, you know, still doing it today. He just did an event in Dubai, like a turntable orchestra thing. He battles, and he is Filipino American, as is Qbert. And you know, I see on stage for the first time someone who kind of looks like me, that is just kind of, you know, killing it.
Right.
Like, people didn't really care. Like, it wasn't like, oh, like, you know, who's this outsider? They're like, oh my God, this guy's killing it. And that was it. That's all he needed to do to be accepted. And, you know, I was already a super fan. And I guess at some point you don't want to just, you know, watch anymore a culture. You want to contribute to the culture. So DJing was it for me. And I like to say that was 94. By 95, I become DJ Neil Armstrong. Actually, Joe from Fat Beats kind of gave me the name.
Oh, nice.
More as a kind of being an asshole, I guess. Which is not odd. You know, that's usually how you get your DJ name. And it kind of stuck. And, yeah. And now I'm here with you. A couple of things happened in between, but that would be it. That's how it all started.
When did you know that? I mean, when did you know how big, I guess, or big of an involvement that this rap music was not just something you heard? Well, you barely heard on the radio. You played with your friends, but amongst your friends, but was part of this culture. I mean, it's kind of like, when did that kind of set in that, all right, I love this music and I want to contribute, but how do I not just contribute to the music, but also contribute to be a strong contributor to what is this huge culture? Like,
when did that happen for me?
I guess, when was the realization? You know, that,
I mean, I guess the realization was when I did my first show for Fat Beats I'd like to say it was Club Vinyl, but again, my brain is shot. It's either Vinyl or Wetlands. I'm pretty sure it was Club Vinyl. And I was hanging out at Fat Beats a lot, quite a bit. Essentially what ended up happening with me was I was writing articles. So fortunately, you know, I've had the opportunity for higher education, and you know, I didn't want to use whatever writing skills or whatever I was taught in school for boring stuff. This is at the very start of the internet, you know, like Alta Vista days. There was no, you know how we log into everything now? Like, you know, we go to a website, we log in usually via Facebook or Google.
Yeah.
None of that existed back then. There's pre-Black Planet, pre-Asian Avenue, pre any of these, you know, login type things. It was just like a free-for-all, you know. The information was there, but getting to it was kind of weird. There used to be a magazine called The Guillotine, and it was run by a female MC named Shaki. And I don't know if she still rhymes. You know, just through time we lost touch with each other. One of the other contributors was a guy who ended up kind of making his name in, I guess, acting. Mum's a schemer.
Oh, no.
I can't remember who else was involved. But essentially, I hit him up and I was like, look, I'm going to Asia to study for the summer. Actually, we got into some program out in, I can't even remember the name of the university. But anyway, I was like, I wanted to write a paper about hip hop in Asia. And they're like, yeah, that would be great. Let's do that. And so that almost kind of set me up for everything. I end up going out there. I end up meeting the Hong Kong DMC champions from like the last 3 years. Yeah, like, you know, just a lot of serendipitous situations. I'm on the train. I'm on the train and I see a guy with a Techniques t-shirt. And fortunately, he happens to be able to speak a little English, more than the rest. His name is B Chan. And he's like, oh, I'm one of the DMC champs. And he brings me to hang out with this other kid named DJ Tommy, who was also one of the, like, maybe a DMC champ. He was there when DJ David did the hand spin on the turntable. So a lot of you guys don't know this, but there was one DMC where this kid did like a hand spin on the turntables. He put them up and he did it, and people lost their minds. And that was the first, I'd like to say that was the first World Finals that Qbert was in, and Qbert was all about skills. So there became this divide in the turntable community, very similar to like the underground backpacker versus, you know, the shiny bling bling side.
Yeah.
There was what's real, like, you know, someone just backspinning, which is cool, but is like a circus act, or what these guys are doing, you know, manipulating sound. Anyway, DJ Tommy was at that battle. He was a Hong Kong chap all the way from back then, and that might have been 89 or 90. I don't know. Anyway, I ended up hanging with them all summer. That was the year that for the DJ heads, the Vestex mixer hadn't come out yet, the PMX Pro, which is the ISP, the first ISP, which is ISP is the Invisible Scratch Pickles. So Qbert's Shortcuts mixer, blah, blah, blah. Shortcut and Qbert happened to be going to Taiwan while I was in Hong Kong to discuss with Vestex building this new mixer. So me, DJ Tommy, you know, we just jumped on a plane and went to Taiwan to meet them. So my opening thing with Qbert was like, I write for this magazine called The Guillotine. Can I interview you? So that was that. Like, that was my opening.
Right.
Back home in New York, all anyone had to know was like, oh, Neil took a picture with Qbert. Like, you know, you got to think back. There's no Instagram.
Yeah.
The fact, all that's all people have to see. And that's enough for people to believe, that must be Qbert's boy. So Neil must be really good. So which wasn't true. I sucked. I was terrible. I wasn't really DJ Neil Armstrong back then. I was becoming him. And from that interview that I did with Qbert, when I came back to New York, I didn't know the X-Men yet. But my introduction to them was I interviewed Qbert in in Asia. Could I interview you guys? Well, what ended up happening was they ended up taking me in.
That's awesome.
As a student, essentially. So I learned from Rock Raider, from Rob Swift, from Total Eclipse, from Mr. Sinister. Like, those were my teachers. And I had a very rough, like, basically class was, I had to battle them. You know, we would throw $1 in a hat, and I would have to battle them. You know, but some of the most respected top DJs in the world, I go from being nobody to having to fight these guys, to spar with them.
Wait, one-on-one battles, or did you have to battle?
We would go, like, you know, I don't know what the term is, but, like, you know, I would battle Mr. Sinister. Whoever would win would battle the next, you know. So Total Eclipse would battle Rob. I would battle, you know, someone else. Whoever wins that would, you know, go to the finals type thing. Bracket. Yeah. And that was my upbringing. That's how it happened. So all of this, you know, I'm telling this story, all of this happens from the summer of 95 to the beginning of 1996. So it's 6 months.
Yeah.
So it goes from 6 months to me being really nobody to learning from some of the best DJs. 6 months. So yeah, I would say right then was when I was like, yeah, this is not normal. Like, I'm part of this, and this is something I want to dedicate my time and life to. So even though I was in college, I mean, I was still practicing like 8-10 hours a day. So I'm not sure how. Either I was here at home, or I was telling a story a little before. You know, I'd be at Fat Beats. So if I wasn't in class, I wasn't doing whatever I was doing, I was at Fat Beats, or I was at home, or I was hanging out with the X-Men. And basically through the X-Men, I ended up meeting my DJ crew, the Fit Platoon.
Right.
And we formed together, and we end up kind of causing a lot of havoc for a little while. Yeah. Until, I guess 2007, I guess we were kind of active. And then after that is when I ended up joining Jay-Z, and kind of life went a little even more crazy.
There've been a lot of questions from that, from your answer, but one question is, why did you end up pursuing DJing versus b-boying versus MC? You know, like, you know, your pastor's son is, or that kid, he does breakdancing, which was obviously really impressive, and then but you decided to go the DJing.
Well, I tried to b-boy and I sucked, and I tried to graph and I sucked, and there's no freaking way. I tried to MC, of course, who hasn't, but yeah, I sucked. But DJing seemed to be the thing that I could do, which is odd because DJing's kind of hard to get into, right? B-boying, all you need is sneakers, and sometimes you don't even need those.
Right.
MCing, you know, pen and a pad.
Right.
You know, graph, same thing, pen and a pad. But
DJ's the most expensive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and a lot of lifting.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the thing that I think kind of drew me in. So my first set was like a real janky Gemini table because it was cheap, and I think I had a Gemini mixer, and that was it. I only had one turntable and a mixer, and I would play something off the radio and try to do stuff, but it's just impossible because like a Gemini, it was a belt drive turntable, and you can't really do anything with it, or not, with a technique. Eventually, I think I bought my first technique might have been used that I bought from Canal Street just because it was a bit cheaper, and it just kind of grew from there. And yeah. When I was in high school, I was that kid who would record Stretch Armstrong and Bobbito.
Nice, yeah.
I'd be the kid who was up all night. There seemed to be a lot of pirate radio back then, and I honestly don't know how I found them. I must have just kept turning the dial until I heard something. So like Silver Surfer had a show. I don't know, a kid named Bishop Lord. I forgot the names of all the shows. I remember Marley Marl every so often would have a show. For some reason, I never really heard the BAI shows. Most likely because I didn't get it.
Right, yeah. So you probably heard some NYU shows like Eclipse or anything?
I don't know if Eclipse had a show back then. Maybe. But one of the shows that I did was at NYU that I heard they were located at NYU. The other show was obviously, Stretch.
Yeah.
And then, later on when 88 Hip Hop came out and all that, by that time I was DJing, so I was actually performing on those shows. But yeah, it seemed the DJing thing was the thing that just called me. It made sense. I was that dude who had all the tapes. Right. And I used to, everyone kind of made mixtapes back then, just compilations, but that's what I used to do. So, yeah, definitely.
When did you know you nailed it? So to say, like, when did you know that you could?
I never really felt that way. To be the age that I grew up in with hip hop, you had to be somewhat arrogant. You weren't humble in the battle scene. You had to act like you were the shit.
Right.
Or at least, not back down. Me personally, I never felt like I quote unquote made it. But when I was running around with the Platoon, just little victories, I guess, which really amounted to nothing because we weren't really getting paid, and I hate to say it that way, but, ultimately that is a mark. Like the difference between an amateur and a professional is when you get paid, I guess. Right. Mm. And, our first mention was in rap pages. We got a mention in rap pages and stuff like that. And then we were on the cover, like, our name was on the cover, not, some mention in the back. For whatever reason, back when XXL was still somewhat of a quote-unquote hip-hop magazine, like, yeah, they put our name as a Fifth Platoon, whatever. But Cash Money was also on the cover, and which is weird, right? But, yeah, we got, like, a full-page little interview about what are, like, who's next? One of those who's next type things. So I think those were the things. And then obviously, when I joined Jay, like, if that doesn't validate what I've done, I don't know what else will.
You talked about Fat Beats. And obviously people who grew up in New York City kind of really realize the significance of Fat Beats to hip hop community and also to even artists that are just, trying to get together to collaborate on something. If you can just kind of talk about the significance that Fat Beats, the store itself, had to New York hip hop culture, as well as artists that might never have been heard by any of us if they didn't.
I wouldn't even just say New York hip hop. It's hip hop,
right?
Like New York. They ended up having a store in Amsterdam and LA for a while, and actually they reopened in LA now, right? But it was like almost like a destination. Like back then, I guess money wasn't really involved yet. Whoever was involved in hip hop was involved for, I guess, quote unquote, the right reasons. So just because they were fans of the music. So it was almost like, just like Stretch Armstrong, if you watch their movie, they talk about, like, it's almost like they were the gatekeepers.
Right.
In order for you to blow up, you had to go through them. And they had the Nas, Biggie, Big L, pick someone from that era. They had to get on that show. And it wasn't even a causal thing, right? Or on purpose thing. This is how it is. Like, I don't think they were ever arrogant about, if you're not on our show, like, you ain't shit. But that was the facts. Like, so MCs wanted to get on that show. People wanted to go to Fat Beats if they came to New York and you were a hip hop head. And, there was just that aspect. So as far as New York goes, it was just kind of this meeting place. I remember who later on, I remember LP being outside, and I didn't really actually talk to him, but I think this is before Fun Crusher Plus came out. Just the EP was out. So, he was just chilling out there and talking to heads and, oh, I'm LP, They have video of Kanye performing in there.
Right.
Gangstar. Pick someone. It was just this epicenter of the hip-hop universe for quite a while. And then, of course, the divide happened, commercial versus whatever, which kind of maybe killed a lot of stuff, even Stretch and Bobbito kind of mentioned, like, we started going in different directions musically. And I think Fat Beats might have had a bit of a identity crisis. Not Fat Beats having it, but just what is hip hop now? Is it the shiny suit era stuff, or is it this backpacker stuff? Like, what's real? And of course, I guess if the winner gets to dictate what is, history, I guess the shiny suit era won, right? But yeah, even back, there was like Stretch and Bob went from doing their radio show to going on Hot 97.
Right.
And I'm positive people were like, that's the enemy. What's going on here? And I think unfortunately that's what ended up happening. Also, obviously, the start of digital downloads and things like Serato coming out and people not really wanting to buy records anymore and the music kind of getting diluted. So that Fat Beats ended up really kind of representing that backpacker, almost borderline nerdy.
Right.
Like you could buy like an Ugly Duckling record there, and that's what it's supposed to be, but if you're not into that stuff, you look at it and you're like, I don't even know what the designation for that stuff is anymore. It wouldn't be college rap. Like college rap, I guess, is the later Asher Ross stuff, but there were all these kids that were just rapping now, during the Atmosphere times, and that style is quote unquote lyrical, and it's backpacker nerdy. You go to the shows, and it's a bunch of dudes
with backpacks on.
Yeah, with backpacks on, and that's not fun to a lot of people if they're just trying to meet girls and they're trying to have fun. And so, yeah, I think there was just a bit of an identity crisis at the end. And I know for the turntablist scene, the way I saw it was it almost became like before there was a designation between the fan and the and the people on stage, or there was a division, right? So we would be on stage and everyone else was just regular people and they could consume what we were doing. But as time went on, turntablism got really abstract to a lot of people. So eventually the only people in the audience were other DJs.
Right.
And it kept getting more abstract. Almost like I can only speculate, but like Coltrane stuff was really a little crazy to a lot of people. I bet there are some people who are just like, this just sounds like noise. Right. I don't get it. I don't understand what's going on in this song. But if you're ahead, you're like, oh my God. Like there's, there's like a video showing like all this crazy stuff mathematically that's happening in this song. But it's unsustainable when you don't have a division between fan base and like people performing. If everyone's performing, no one wants to pay, right? So if I'm DJing and it's just my homies coming because they're the ones who like it, my friends aren't going to pay $10 to see me. So eventually that scene kind of ate itself alive too. And for like, I think there has been somewhat of a resurgence. Like the Red Bull 3 style stuff, the DMC battles are still around, and actually the really hardcore musical scratch, people have actually found a space as well online, less competition oriented, and just a community based, but they also do competitions and they do them online. So the overhead is not the same. Like, you don't have to go out and rent a venue and hope that 100 people show up just to break even. Like, no, it's cool. There's no, just submit the video, get a sponsor, the hits. That's what's, how you can say like, hey, you should sponsor this because we could get your product out, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so I don't even remember what the original question was anymore. But
so for that, like, what is your role? What do you feel was your role as a DJ? But how has that? I mean, you've obviously you mentioned the Jay-Z tour. You've gone to much bigger things. So you can't do the quote unquote underground set, right? I mean, you're playing to a bigger
I still
audience.
Can, but that was actually one of the more interesting things that would happen to me when I was on tour. Like, I had my little, I guess, identity crisis, but if I had never joined Jay-Z, I would probably be more like a Cucumber Slice, Bobbito of Rich Medina, a DJ Spinner. I don't think Rich Medina has ever played a Future song. I could be wrong, but I don't think he has. Spinner does like a crazy, I guess, house night, and I would probably be more like those guys. But that's not what happened to me. I got stuck with the biggest MC, arguably the greatest MC, definitely the most commercially successful MC.
Right.
And so, yeah, I got to adjust. I can't freaking shove Dilla beats down a bunch of people who all they know is D-Block. Like,
right.
So I had to.
Did you try?
I don't know if you would say I would try. It was interesting. When I was on tour with Jay was 2008, 2009. And I was on tour, so I wasn't really listening to the music. I wasn't in clubs.
Okay.
I was out doing my thing. So I was still pushing some of my older style of stuff that it just didn't occur to me I should switch it up. And it would work just cause, it was still good music. But, that was the advent of the electronic side coming into play. So that was starting when, maybe a year later is when like Barbra Streisand would come out, and that whole, like the Far East movement and the party rock stuff was starting to infiltrate. And I wasn't doing that at all. I was just, I was still playing Mary J. Blige because I was on tour with Mary J,
right.
And yeah, it was interesting. I wasn't really playing Lil Wayne back then, and I ended up playing Lil Wayne, but when I was on the cover of XXL with Lil Wayne, I wouldn't dare play a Lil Wayne song. Not back then, but yeah, later on, I had to kind of maneuver and figure out, okay, because ultimately I think this is where I might not agree with some DJs who are out there. There used to be this kind of mentality that like, almost like, well, if the crowd doesn't like what I'm playing, then that's their fault.
Right,
I'm here to educate the crowd. I have a totally different philosophy. Like my belief is like, no, like our job, we're public servants. So if there happens to be a group of people who came out, a large group of people that just turned 21 and they want to hear Britney Spears, like those are the people I need to take care of. Even in a just more bigger scheme, like when people go out on a Friday night, they're trying to escape their problems. Right. They're trying to forget stuff. They're not trying to learn. They're not trying to be educated. They just want to cut loose. Yeah. So, that's not my job at that point. My job is to take care of them. And it's been interesting because that quote has been misconstrued, and if you don't take it in context, it sounds kind of weird. But yeah, like I think, and this is a paraphrasing from oh my God, what's that movie? Joe Pesci was in it. the Harvard dude, I forget, Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, what?
You know what I'm talking about,
yes.
right? But he talks about what the job of the president, right, is
with honors. No, with honors.
Something with honors, right? He says like the job of the president is, you know, the beauty, which consequently right now doesn't seem to be true. But the beauty of our government is that the president, no matter what, can never be a dictator because he works for us. That's what his job is supposed to be. He works for us. We're the boss.
Right.
He's not the boss. We're the boss. Unfortunately, I think that's been lost recently, but that's what I feel with DJing. Like, I'm a public servant. I'm not the boss. Like, you got to tell me, and then I'll act accordingly. Now, a really good DJ does fit in the cool stuff, does fit in music that they would like, you know, and they find common ground. The easier stuff would be like a old Marvin Gaye joint and Michael Jackson, which is really interesting. I hope you ask me about the Michael Jackson stuff right now, because obviously we have a little controversy these days. But yeah, like that's my attitude. So I willfully sold out, if that's what people want to say. It was not an issue for me, because if these are my constituents, I need to take care of my constituents, the people who come to my party. And eventually I would like to say I got to be known as like, oh, he just throws a good party. So I've been able, I mean, I've DJed at the Do-Over. I've done, you know, not just LA and in Asia and whatever. Did I do one? I don't know if we did, I guess Mexico? No. That was an Adidas event, but we did Philippines, Tokyo, not Tokyo, maybe Osaka in Japan. Okay. Anyway, the point is, I've been able to do a lot of really cool parties, and I'm hoping everyone just came home with a, you know, like, oh, I had a great time. You know, whether or not they remember what I played is kind of secondary to me. It's more, you know, I had a blast. I don't even remember. I don't even remember what happened that night. I was just having too much fun. That's more important to me than, you know, whatever. But if it is a DJ nerd out, which I do get to do every so often, oh, that's perfect for me too. And we did an all R&B party, and actually this is not really odd that I do these things, but I guess this day and age, a lot of DJs are, I don't know, I guess they don't do, but I played a Sade song, and I played certain songs. I played an old Motown song that was obscure. And I guess nowadays certain things like that were risky. And one of my DJ homies, DJ Oba, you know, he felt it enough of a surprise that he posted something about it, like, yo, no one takes risks anymore. And, you know, this, I respect Neil for doing this. And, you know, that's to me, that's a good DJ. And he's a DJ head. He does an all vinyl party.
Wait, why is that a risk?
I guess some cats just don't do that. Not at prime time. You know, they'll keep it a certain level. I think I played Mint Condition. That was in particular at maybe 1. And I've done this a couple of times just cause if you give me that leeway, like you can really do whatever you want. We have a musical crowd. Oh, that 100%. I will do stuff like that, even if it wasn't an R&B party.
All right.
Just cause I don't know. I used to do that. But yeah, if you don't give me that type of leeway, absolutely, I'm scared. Cause I don't know what, you know, these kids nowadays, the people who go out to clubs, it's not these kids. People who go out to club are in the range of, let's just say, on the low end, 19 to 30.
All right.
That's the normal person. Then you got someone like me who's been in the club forever. I'm like a super senior. But just as a gauge, they were born then after 94.
Yeah.
So they were born before One More Chance came out, before Juicy came out. Like, why would they know that? Except through, through just the public stream of consciousness. It's been in movies, people reference it. Notorious Big had a movie right now, or they, not right now, you know what I'm saying? There was a Notorious Big biopic movie. But beyond that, they don't, I don't know if they know, old Smith and Wesson songs. I don't know.
Right.
I've never heard a Sade song played on normal radio on Z100. Have you?
No. All right.
So, yeah, those things are a little risky. I'm sure they know an Ariana Grande song, but a Sade song, that might be a little tougher. So, yeah, I guess I don't remember where I started. I'm sorry, I ramble. Obviously, I'm a rambler.
Hey, this is Jeff Lewis from Radio Andy, live and uncensored. Catch me talking with my friends about my latest obsessions, relationship issues, and bodily ailments. With that kind of drama that seems to follow me, you never know what's going to happen.
You can listen to Jeff Lewis live at home or anywhere you are. Download the SiriusXM app for over 425 channels of ad-free music, sports, entertainment, and more. Subscribe now and get 3 months free. Offer details apply.
Meet the next generation of podcast stars with SiriusXM's Listen Next program, presented by State Farm. As part of their mission to help voices be heard, State Farm teamed up with SiriusXM to uplift diverse and emerging creators. Tune in to Stars and Stars with Issa, as host Issa Nakazawa dives into birth charts of her celeb guests. This is just the start of a new wave of podcasting. Visit statefarm.com to find out how we can help prepare for your future. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.